Imagine buying a piece of land that doesn't exist, not because it was stolen or imaginary, but because it was underwater. Now, imagine doing this in the 1920s, when thousands of Americans poured their life savings into Florida real estate they'd never even seen, driven by dreams of quick riches and eternal sunshine. It was a time when the air itself smelled like money, when ads promised ocean views, palm trees, and fortune, all for a few monthly payments, and when even swampy wastelands were sold as the next Miami Beach. But behind the glossy brochures and booming sales lay a financial time bomb, because beneath the surface, literally, was something the salesman didn't want you to know. Florida's land boom was built not on solid ground, but on sand, water, and pure speculation. This is the story of how an American dream turned into a nationwide delusion, and how the lessons from this forgotten frenzy still echo in every housing bubble since. It's the early 1920s. America is roaring. After World War I, the United States is rich, confident, and bursting with optimism. Cars are flooding the streets. Radios are bringing the world into people's homes, and the stock market is soaring. But while Wall Street glitters, another kind of gold rush is brewing down south. Land, Florida, once dismissed as a mosquito-infested backwater, suddenly becomes the promised land. Developers, dreamers, and hustlers all converge on one idea: that this tropical peninsula could be America's next frontier of wealth. The pitch was simple and brilliant. Why work for decades up north in the cold, when you could buy a piece of paradise for a few $100s? Why shovel snow when you could lie on a beach all year? The fantasy was irresistible, and advertising turned that fantasy into a frenzy. Developers like Carl Fisher, the man behind Miami Beach, knew how to sell a dream. A former caressing enthusiast, Fisher didn't just build Rhodesy, built illusions. He transformed a mangrove swamp into a glamorous resort city, then invited Hollywood stars and millionaires to bask in the Florida sun. He placed full-page ads in major magazines, showing glamorous couples on pristine beaches. He promised luxury, exclusivity, and easy profit. By now, before it's gone, the idea wasn't just to sell land. It was to sell status and escape. In Fisher's words, it's not just real estate, it's the American dream in palm trees and sunshine. And people believed it. But dreams alone don't start a boom. Transportation does. Florida's land rush was fueled by railroads. In the late 19th century, industrialists like Henry Flagler, co-founder of Standard Oil, extended train lines deep into Florida. By the 1920s, these railroads connected Miami, Tampa, and Palm Beach to northern cities like New York and Chicago. For the first time, it was possible for middle-class Americans to visit Florida and imagine living there. Developers jumped on the opportunity, offering mail-order land and promising huge returns to anyone willing to invest sight unseen. Buyers sent money through the mail and received colorful maps marking their plots, many of which were still covered in water or didn't even exist yet. The boom exploded between 1923 and 1925. Land prices doubled, tripled, even quadrupled in a matter of months. In Miami alone, property values skyrocketed 500% in just 2 years. Real estate offices popped up on every corner. Speculators camped out overnight to get first dibs on new subdivisions. Taxi drivers, teachers, and secretaries all quit their jobs to become land brokers. Everyone had a friend who had made a fortune. Everyone thought they'd be next. And why not? As long as prices kept rising, it didn't matter if the land was worthless. Someone else would pay more tomorrow. The frenzy was fueled by installment plans. Pay a small down payment, and the rest over time. You didn't need to be rich to invest. You just needed belief. Developers made it sound like a sure thing. Buy now, sell later, and let the next buyer pay off your loan. Land changed hands dozens of times before a single house was built. In some cases, people sold property they didn't even own yet, trading paper deeds like stock certificates. It was pure speculation. And as long as confidence held, the game worked. But there was a problem brewing, one hidden beneath the excitement. By late 1925, Florida was showing signs of strain. The infrastructure couldn't keep up. Roads were jammed with cars, hotels were overflowing, and the railroads, they were clogged with so much construction material that food and fuel couldn't get through. Then came the weather. Florida's paradise had a dark side: hurricanes, floods, and heat. In 1926, a massive hurricane struck Miami, flattening neighborhoods and killing hundreds. It was a shocking reminder that Florida wasn't a guaranteed paradise. It was a fragile, volatile landscape. But even before that storm hit, the boom was already unraveling. In January 1925, the railroads, overwhelmed by demand, imposed a freight embargo on Florida. Construction materials couldn't get in. Goods couldn't get out. Development ground to a halt. Suddenly, all those future cities promised in glossy ads were just empty plots of sand and mud. Speculators began to panic. Buyers defaulted on payments. Confidence cracked, and like all bubbles, it only took one pinprick to burst it completely. By 1926, the Florida land boom collapsed spectacularly. Property values plunged overnight. Investors fled. Banks failed. Those who had gotten rich first, the developers and early speculators, walked away with fortunes. Everyone else was left holding worthless deeds to swamps and ghost towns. Entire communities vanished. Dreams evaporated as fast as they had appeared. Miami, once the symbol of boundless opportunity, became a ghost city of half-built resorts and broken hopes. The national press mocked Florida as the graveyard of fool's gold. By the end of the decade, the Great Depression would finish what the boom had started. The Florida crash wiped out hundreds of millions of dollars, billions, in today's terms. Banks that had lent heavily to land speculators went bankrupt. Thousands of ordinary Americans lost their savings, and trust in easy money real estate schemes was shattered. Even cities that had boomed, like Miami and Tampa, faced years of stagnation. Empty lots dotted the landscape like scars. Subdivisions were reclaimed by weeds and water. The dream of Florida as a boundless paradise had drowned, quite literally. But the deeper story wasn't just about Florida. It was about human psychology. Because even after the pain, the same people who lost everything still believed that next time would be different. What happened in Florida wasn't an isolated event. It was a case study in the timeless cycle of greed and belief. When people see others getting rich, they fear missing out. When they hear stories of quick fortunes, they convince themselves that they can't lose. Speculation feeds on optimism, and optimism feeds on storytelling. The Florida boom worked because it sold not just land, but an identity. You're not just buying property, you're buying a dream. And that same emotional formula would be repeated again and again. The Florida land boom was just the first great real estate bubble of modern America, but it wouldn't be the last. Fast forward to the 1980s savings and loan crisis, where banks poured billions into speculative real estate projects that collapsed. Or the 2000s housing bubble, when subprime loans replaced Florida swamplands and mortgage-backed securities replaced paper deeds. In both cases, the same forces were at play. Easy credit, blind optimism, and the belief that someone else would always buy next. Today, speculation has simply gone digital. Cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and virtual real estate in the metaverse are the new Florida swamps, unregulated, hyped, and often disconnected from reality. Investors buy pixels instead of plots, tokens instead of titles, and the same cycle of hype and collapse plays out, just with new language. It has the same old dream, that you can turn nothing into something if enough people believe in it. So why do we never learn? Because speculation doesn't start with numbers. It starts with stories. Stories of easy money, transformation, and paradise. Just waiting to be discovered. We fall for it because we want to believe that wealth can be created without work. That fortune can be found with timing instead of toil. So, what can we take away from this? First, hype always outruns reality. When taxi drivers start giving stock tips, the smart money is already leaving. Second, fundamentals always win in the end. Florida swamps didn't care about brochures. They flooded anyway. And third, the cycle never ends. It only evolves. Understanding history is about seeing the next bubble before it bursts. Today, if you walk through parts of Florida, you can still find old, crumbling billboards from the 1920s, promising the next great resort city. Most of those cities never existed, but the dream it never died. The question is, when the next land boom comes, will we recognize the swamp before we step in? If you found this story eye-opening, hit that like button. It helps more people discover the hidden lessons of history. Subscribe for more deep dives into the forgotten events that shaped our world. And remember, every bubble begins as a dream. The real challenge is knowing when that dream turns into a mirage.